You alright? So it's a new book. It's called Etiquette for Women. It's literally falling apart in my hands as I'm holding it. It's just fucking rotten, bit mouldy. Uh, it's just called Etiquette for Women. I don't know who wrote it. Let's have a look. Let's quote the author if we can. He feels fucking horrible. It's written by a woman, Irene Davison. Written by a book of modern manners and customs. The year is 1929. This is from, so nearly 100 years old, this book, and it is starting to fucking biodegrade as we speak. So on the first couple of pages is a couple of adverts. For those of you that are listening on Spotify, this is going to be a series on Patreon. For those on Patreon, it's a new book series, Storytime with Jack. The last book's finished. This is so on the first page got adverts. Useful handbooks on character reading and fortune telling. Faces and how to read them by Irma Blood. A person's character is revealed by his or her features. The mouth or the nose can tell one who knows certain traits, which may be good or bad. By means of this book you can know thyself and know thy friends. Learn to read character from the face, and you will be successful in business and lucky in love. Birthday luck, as indicated by the planets, by Aries. Paper wrapper, price is 6D net. That's not important, we'll ignore that. This volume will tell you how to cultivate the good and avoid the evil influences which are at work to affect your life. If you are ignorant of them, you may miss many opportunities of happiness and success. This book will guide you. They know their fucking audience, don't you? They're selling for. I could learn from these. Fucking ethic. So it's women that are going to be reading it, obviously, and they're not like, buy some power tools, learn how to put up a shelf. It's 1929, for fuck's sake. Get with the times. The Fortune Teller by Professor P.R.S. Foley. The subjects dealt with include augury by birds, astrology, gypsy fortune tellers, crystal gazing, advice and hints for beginners in fortune telling, lucky stars, lines on the hands in palmistry, precious stones and their meanings, rings and bride cake, wedding rings, teacup fortune telling, good and bad luck, quaint ceremonies, etc. I think that etc. there is a bit late. Do you not think that should be maybe after crystal gazing, etc.? Because the rest of that is etc. A lot of it, I'll be dead honest, sounds made up. Lucky Charms and Omens, another book. What They Mean, a dictionary of superstitions. That does actually sound quite good. That has got no more information on it either. That's it. Hand reading made easy. Mr. Noel Yaquin is one of the greatest experts in the science of hand reading. He makes no claim to tell fortunes from the hand, but in his book he describes how correct interpretation of the lines of the hand may frequently solve the problems of everyday life, domestic happiness, the choice of a right career, and the guarding of one's health. Being like, your hands look a bit rough here. I imagine you work in the mines. I think you're going to die young. Do you know what I mean? That's, I think, what a lot of hand reading is. Fortune telling by cards, and the picture on that looks like a sort of a crossover between a KKK man and a gnome. This volume includes all the best known methods of reading the cards, in capital letters, heads and how to read them. So not to be confused with faces and how to read them. Written by a different person. This one's written by Stockpool E.L. Dell, the eminent phrenologist, right, which we know isn't real. 20 illustrations. Some of the contents of this useful handbook are the aspiring head, the domestic head, how to discern temperaments, how to be happy. I've just put out an episode called Here's How to Be Happy on Spotify today. Intellectual heads, mechanical and business heads, men, women ought and ought not to marry, the professional head, the reflective head, a born cook, a servant who will do her best, how to choose servants, head showing activity, matrimonial temperament, refined mind, vitality, etc. He changes grammar there as well, so it becomes like an aggressive list. Pearson's dream book. Some of the subjects dealt with the dreams and the mystic reality, the interpretation of the dreams by magic ciphers, the magic square of fate, the table of dreams according to their days, a list of dream subjects and what they indicate alphabetically arranged, omens, etc. Moles and their meaning. With regard, see, this all adds into that idea in my head that magic is real. Magic did exist, does exist, but we've just been told it's a load of shit. And up until, like, you know, the Second World War, everyone was fully aware that magic was a thing that we were all worried about. Hence, like Aleister Crowley and that, having a magical battle and using fucking magic to try and summon a monster of hell, well, the 7 monsters of hell through a portal in Loch Ness, and there's all sorts of stuff which points to magic is probably real. This goes on. There's more. There's the stars, night by night. Lucky charms and omens, astrology, Nurse Margaret's book on babies. The contents include the threshold of motherhood, breastfeeding, forming baby's character, clothing for baby, normal growth and development, artificial feeding, when baby is out of sorts, the nervous child, when your child is ill, mistakes mothers make, etc., etc. We can thoroughly recommend this book by the Nursing Times. Names for babies, a dictionary of Christian names. Etiquette. Now on the next page, more adverts. It puts me to fucking shame. I only put a couple of pages of adverts. How shall I word it? The art of correct letter writing for men and women on all occasions. Etiquette for men, written by a different guy. Etiquette for women by Irene Davis, and that's who this is by. So she advertises her own book in her own book, which is weird. Servants and Their Duties, a handbook for mistresses and maids, the etiquette and engagement of marriage, and the lover's guide. But let's crack on. Let's get into this. I think there's a lot of pages, but the pages have all gone quite thick. There's only 100 and odd pages in this one. We'll get through this quite quick. It's fucking horrible to touch. Forward. Be considerate, and you'll be courteous and correct is a kindly truism, but helpful up to a certain point only. Consideration for others is without question the basis of all etiquette. But it is apt to leave us... Yeah, but then etiquette, you could argue that it's bad etiquette to fart in public, but it's good etiquette to say, excuse me, after you do fart in public. It's bad etiquette to hold them in until you get to the lift with the strangers. It's good etiquette to do it after you've gotten out of the lift with the strangers. Do you know what I mean? It's a grey area, isn't it? But it is apt to leave us stranded when we want to know the correct way to eat grapefruit, or how many cards to leave when returning a call. The woman anxious to solve such everyday problems as these has no need of generalizations. Her desire to know these things which make life a pleasanter, more smoothly running affair from... For these things to make life a pleasanter, more smoothly running affair for everybody is a proof of her innate courtesy. But she does seek help over the details that make up everyday etiquette. What to do in given circumstances and how and when. Happily there are certain rules, simple and clearly defined, to guide her. This volume is designed to set out for the more important of those in common use. So many colons in that paragraph. A tiny little paragraph. I think there's 4 colons. Right, these pages are falling apart. Chapter 1, Introductions. Good place to start, isn't it? Introductions. 3 very simple rules are the basis of all introductions. If you're inclined to get stage fright when you have to introduce people one to another, just learn these rules by heart and then practice them regularly. I'm going to guess. We're going to try and guess these as we go through. That's going to be the game of this book, I think. The game of the last book was to try and figure out what the twist would be. The game of this book is to try and figure out, do I have good etiquette? I'm not going to be... I probably won't take the piss. I'll try to be good with it, So when you're introducing someone, hello, Dave. This is Dave. Dave. This is Davina. Davina. Dave. Introductions done. You get stage fright. You just go, have you two met each other? Right, so let's see where she goes. Naturally, you can't buttonhole your friends. Buttonhole sounds like it's you can't, bumhole your friends. And acquaintances and introduce them haphazard just for your own education. Here's a more practical plan. It's just, already, that's the first paragraph, and it's... Naturally, you can't buttonhole your friends and acquaintances and introduce them haphazard just for your own education. Here's a more practical plan. Every day, think of 2 people at random, characters from a story or the newspaper columns. Introduce them to each other. Oh, Woody from Toy Story. Have you met Ed Gein? Introduce them to one another. If you can make the introduction aloud, so much the better. You will learn in this way to apply your rules quickly to all kinds of circumstances. Then, when you wish to make an actual introduction, you won't have to hesitate at the crucial moment to wonder, let me see, whose name do I mention first? Do I say, Lucy Letby, have you met Derek Acora? Do you know what I mean? Is this worth taking trouble over this point? For to be able to make... Okay, so the page numbers start there. The page numbers start at page 14. Which is weird, because we're not on page 14, clearly. To be able to make introductions easily and gracefully gives self-confidence in many social emergencies. Like most rules, these have their exceptions, but don't bother yourself with them until you are quite sure of the rules themselves, which quite practically cover all everyday needs. They are: Rule number 1. Always introduce the gentleman to the lady and mention her name first. Like this: Miss Carter, may I introduce Mr. Lester to you? So in our example that we did, it would be, Miss Letby, allow me to introduce Mr. Akora. Introduce an unmarried woman to one who is married, and the bachelor to a married man. But, rule number 3, when both are married or both single, introduce the younger to the elder. See, this is why people probably killed each other a lot back in the day. If they had all these unwritten rules, imagine how autistic people fucking fared, mate. This is mad. Like, imagine you get that wrong as well. You're really important meeting, you're looking at these two women, you're like, oh, fucking hell. These pair could genuinely be sisters. I've got no idea. And then you get it the wrong way round, and they're like, oh, excuse me, I'll have you know that I'm only 32. She's 64. You're like, oh, now that you say that, and the light's shining on her face, yeah, I can see the leathery effect on her cleavage, yeah, innit? Sorry, I do apologise. This is the young one, this is the old one. But, like, age before beauty, I wonder if that comes from there. Don't make any exception to the first rule, no matter how much more important the man is socially, always and only expecting if he should be a royal prince. Right? To the other, that was in brackets, all of that. To the other two rules, rank does sometimes make a difference. If one of the two to be introduced be of much higher social standing, the other should be introduced to him or her. The age may modify the second rule, for when the unmarried person is much more the senior, it is permissible and often more gracious to introduce the younger. It would be better, for example, to introduce a newly married girl to a distinguished elderly lady who is unmarried. What to say is a very easy matter. Hello. The simple form, already suggested, is the best to use, but how you say it is most important, for you must pronounce the name so clearly that neither of the people introduced will be left wondering what the other's name really is. Like, I've known people who are called Ian, but everyone calls them Les. I knew a guy called Clive, who everyone called Steve, but some people called Terry. He was a very confusing man. Always an embarrassed. I might have had them names mixed up there. There was a Clive who had different names, and then there was the Ian and Les one. Yeah, the other guy was a butcher I worked with for a bit, who said, "Oh, my name's this, but everyone calls me this," and then everybody else called him by different names. I think he was just a lunatic. Always an embarrassing thing. When introducing impersonal friends, you may be less formal, but no less punctilious about names. Ooh, punctilious is a nice. You might say, Joan, may I introduce Miss Carter to you? She was my great chum at college. And the other, you have often heard of speak of my friend, Mrs. Laley, but you must mention both surnames clearly so that the other two will know how to address one another. If you introduce two friends, say, at a party, and leave them to talk together, do be kind to them and suggest an opening for the conversation. Child porn, yes or no? If you had, for instance, Miss Trent thinks of spending her holidays in Trezesimo, that's not a real place, where you enjoyed yourself so much. Or, I have been telling Mrs. Tatham about your lovely garden. She is as interested in gardening as you are. I've been telling Miss West here about your lovely new patio. She's into patios too. You know what I mean? This is fucking... You will have started the conversational ball rolling. There's so many sort of little bits of this where you're like, yeah, but there's other things involved with this. Do you know what I mean? Like, contextually, the idea that everybody spoke from this fucking script constantly, and then, World War II comes around, new weaponry, traumatise entire countries, and then we're all just like, you alright? You alright? How are we? Fucking, what you saying? You know what I mean? No one even knows. I've known people for years where I've never known the names. I had a mate in college. I never knew his name. Didn't know his name until I think after we'd left college. And he added me on Facebook. And I was like, huh, that's his real name. I wonder why we all called him, it was an egg-based product that we all called him. But weird anyway. If you are out in the street with a friend and meet another, shall you introduce them? Well, it isn't necessary, and although there's no fixed rule about it, it is considered better not to make such an introduction. Imagine that you see one mate on the one end of the road and another crossing the road. Like, wait there, Dave, Chickpitty Dave, Graham, have you two met? They're not even facing each other. It's just nonsense. Should the friend you meet stop to speak, your companion would walk on quietly and let you overtake her. But if you would like the friends to know one another and think it would please them, you will be acting quite correctly in introducing them when you meet. This is often the most natural and graceful thing to do. There's an, quote, extra, end quote, rule about introductions that you must never break. You must never, ever take out your penis or vagina as your... This is etiquette for women, but in 1929, but it's etiquette for women, in modern day. So, we've got to be... proper. If you are asked for an introduction to someone you know, you must first find out whether that someone is willing to have the introduction made. It is a very grave mistake not to do so. ... And, of course, you would never dream, would you, of asking such permission in the hearing of the person who seeks it. Is this still fucking rule number 3? This is ridiculous. This has gone on for ages. If you are asked for it... Of course, you would never dream of, would you, asking for permission of someone who doesn't seek to hear it. This doesn't apply to the introduction of dancing partners, because the lady, in that case, need not continue the acquaintance if she didn't want to. Being introduced, new section now. How long is introductions? Okay, we'll finish off introductions and then we'll call it a day there. Being introduced. So far, you have done all the introducing, but there's a little being introduced side to consider as well. This is quite simple, but it will give you confidence and poise if you are quite sure beforehand when you should take the initiative and when to leave it to the other. The query, may I introduce, is purely formal and doesn't require any answer. May I introduce to you the star of the show, this dead pug? No. And you imagine, that'd be mint meeting like an old style period drama, like, Lady Lesher, may I introduce to you? No! Fuck off! It'd be mint, wouldn't it? The correct way to acknowledge an introduction is with a bow and a pleasant smile. If you like, you may say, how do you do? How do you do? But no other remark is expected. To shake hands is unnecessary, although when it seems kindly to do so, the woman to whom the introduction is made may offer her hand, and this brings us to the 2 simple rules for the introduced. When a man and woman are introduced, the woman takes the initiative. She cups his testicles and says, I would guess about 3.5 pounds. She may shake hands, but the man must never make the first move to do so. And if she's seated at the time, she should not get up when the introduction is made. When you're introduced to another woman, it is her privilege to take the lead. Equally, when anyone is introduced to you, it is your place to open any conversation. What? So this means, let's say, fucking hell, I'm running out of names, but let's say Janie, right, is getting introduced to Diane, right? Janie is getting introduced to Diane by Michelle, right? So Michelle is introducing Janie to Diane. Well, Diane to Janie. It depends how you word it, doesn't it? Because in that situation, the first situation, Michelle's bringing Diane over to Janie. You word it the other way, Michelle's bringing Janie over to Diane. This is very confusing. So the one who's being introduced to you, it's your... So if someone comes over to you, that's a lot of pressure, isn't it? Someone comes over to you and you're like, have you met Steve? And you're like, Steve, what size shoe are you? I can't think of anything else to say, mate, but I've got to say something. 'Tis polite, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's an awful lot of pressure. Here's Diane. Oh, Diane, you look like someone who pisses without their arse touching the toilet seat in a public setting. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you... I don't know, man, it's weird. Don't mention the weather if you can help it, but remember that it is better to comment on the superfluous rainfall. That's it, superfluous is... That's in uneducated guesses. I've never seen it used in a sentence like this. So I still don't know what that means. I imagine it means a lot of. I was not far off then, because I thought it was a big list. Superfluous rainfall, then to leave an awkward pause. Imagine, Janie, this is Diane. Sorry, I forgot. Janie's not much of a talker. Diane, if you'd please come with me. We'll go to the bathroom together, and we'll talk through the stall walls. Apply the same rules to following up an introduction. If a man has been introduced to you at a dance or a dinner party, you are not bound to recognise him the next time you meet if you'd rather not continue the acquaintance. How fucking rude! Like, if that's mental, so that implies that it was polite. So a woman meets a man, they say hello to each other, maybe have a little formal dance or whatever, be like, oh, lovely to meet you, see you in a bit, mate, a little acquaintance. Never even intending to see each other again. Bump into each other in the shop. The guy could go, "Oh, fucking hell, you're right, Stevie. Yeah, you're right, love." And she just stares at him and goes, "Do I know you?" Do you know what I mean? Like, fucking mental. On the other hand, it would be discourteous to ignore him completely. Oh, we should have carried on reading. It would be discourteous to ignore him completely unless you had very serious reason for do so, like he goosed you. And it is perfectly simple to give the formal bow due to a slight acquaintance without encouraging friendship. Don't make the mistake of waiting for him to give the first sign of recognition, because it would be a grave breach of good manners if he did. He expects you to make the first move, see? Women should make the first move. That's where everything goes wrong, because women would, talk, oh, no, men should make the first move. And look at where that's got us. That's got us to a Me Too movement that's lasted for years. It's got into a lot of allegations and things like that, whereas if it was still women coming back up to men going, I enjoyed that time I met you. You were lovely. Do you want to go for a beer? Men would be happier. I reckon there'd be a lot less men topping themselves. Do you know what I mean? It's fucking no mention of that though here. When another woman has been introduced to you, it is equally important that you should take the first step if you'd like to become more friendly with her. When you have been introduced, wait for the other woman to speak first the next time you meet, and don't make any attempt to follow up the introduction if she doesn't. So it's like but that's bad advice anyway for a woman nowadays, because now if a woman kind of knew another woman and they see each other in the street and don't nod or smile, little hand wave from the hip, little thumbs up in a point, little wink, little fucking tip of the baseball cap, little flash of the minge from the skirt, they do nothing. That other woman, then, you're her fucking enemy. They'll kill each other. Women are evil and horrible. They hate each other. They need any fucking inclination to ruin each other's lives. That's all they need. Oh, they didn't fucking look at me when I walked past them in boots. Do you know what I mean? Fucking nuts. What terrible advice. Letters of introduction. There's another form of introduction to consider, that made by letter. A friend, say, is going to live near another of your friends, and you'd like them to know each other. Why? So you give her a letter of introduction. Be discreet, by the way, in offering such a letter. You should be reasonably certain that the two introduced will find one another pleasant and interesting acquaintances. Never write one just because you happen to know someone living in the place which your friend is going. Write the letter briefly, but mention any point of interest the friends may have in common. For instance, we got an example. Dear Miss Brown, this letter is to introduce my friend, Mrs. Robinson. Here's to you. Who is coming to live in your neighbourhood. Like you, she's an enthusiastic badminton player, and for 2 years she's been the very able and popular secretary of the badminton club here. I'm sure you two will get on exceedingly well together. What a fucking nosy cunt. What an fucking interfering bitch. Don't add any personal news to such a letter. She's got syphilis, she's had 5 kids, and managed to have somehow, we don't know how, 2 hysterectomies, so we don't trust a word she says. Don't add any personal news to a letter. And don't seal the envelope in which you put it, because you've got to allow the postman to read it. Simply write the address on this. Mrs. Robinson will fasten it up before it goes to Miss Brown. She should not hand it to her personally, but leave it at her house together with her own visiting card. If the introduction were to a man, she should send it by post, enclosing it with her visiting card in another envelope. What the fuck are they on about? When a letter of introduction is presented to you, it must be acknowledged at once. If possible, call the very next day on the lady who has left it, and if for any urgent reason you cannot make such a call within 3 or 4 days, write to her explaining the reason. People had a lot of time, didn't they? When you call, you should invite her to tea or to luncheon as you prefer. And don't forget that it is courteous to send a little note of acknowledgement to the writer of the letter as well, will you? No, you fucking. Cheers, Diane. You introduced me to Mrs. Badminton's secretary. She won't leave me alone. She's borrowed 5 pieces of Tupperware and only returned 3 with lids. I've got 2 empty boxes. This is your fault. Yours faithfully, Diane. If a letter of introduction is presented by a man, however, don't break the definite rule that a woman does not call upon a man. You should simply write a pleasant little note extending an invitation to your house. Or if you're married and the introduction is to your husband as well as yourself, your husband may call and give the invitation personally. What a different world this was, 1920 fucking 1928, I think this was originally written. What a mad world, mate. That this is what we were worried about. It's fucking mental. Chapter 2 is called Visiting Cards and Their Uses. So if you want to learn what visiting cards are, join the Patreon. If you're already on Patreon, you'll have to fucking wait till next week. And we'll carry on with this maybe a bit later in the week because it's such a short book. I'll fucking see you in a bit, guys. Patreon.com/worldaroundyou if you're not already on there. I'm going to leave this in there if you are on Patreon. I appreciate you being on here. I'll fucking see you in a bit, guys.